This is my E46 M3, which I waited nearly a decade to buy, and I hope it's the car I never have to sell. Around about 2012, I found a photo on the internet of a green E46 M3. This colour green. Now, I didn't like BMWs, I didn't know anything about them, but I knew I liked that colour. I did some research and hoped that maybe it was a factory colour and that it was quite common and easy to find. It was a manufacturer colour, Oxford Green 2, but it was not common. Of the 85,000 E46 M3s, they made about 429 in this colour. And in the UK, that number's about 60 to 70. So, faced with those very unlikely odds of finding one, I did the one thing I know how to do, and that's be an incredible car nerd who's incredibly boring and start an Excel sheet, tracking every green M3 I could find in the UK. I had resigned myself to the fact that I would never own an Oxford Green M3. My plan was to save up some money, buy a crash-damaged black M3 and respray it green, because that's all I wanted. I just wanted the colour. I didn't care about the rarity or the prestige or any of that. I just wanted a green one. Then one night at 1 AM, while randomly scrolling through a random car sales site, I saw something that caught my eye. I scrolled back to the ad, clicked on what I thought was a black M3 that seemed something off, and when I went through the photos, I realised it was green. But not only that, if you look there, it has the cloth interior. That interior is called M texture, and it is just as rare and just as hard to find as the colour on the outside. I knew instantly that this was a weird car that wasn't on my list, so I tried to call the seller at 1 AM. He didn't pick up the phone, naturally, and so I laid awake until 6 AM to try and ring him again. I rung him again at 6 AM, and he said, come on down and have a look.
So immediately after that, Edwin put the phone down and then sent me a message and said, I don't care what you're doing today, we're going to Bath.
Which, if you're not from UK, does not mean we were sat together in the water. That is a place.
That is a place, and it was a couple of hours away?
A couple of hours away,
Yeah.
And I said, we're just going to look at this.
Yeah.
Because I didn't really have the money to buy it. I worked out that if I sold everything I owned, I could afford half of the car, and the rest would need to be a loan. But I said, let's just go and look at it. And then when we saw it, it was game over.
The guy pulled the cover off of it, and I was like, it doesn't matter how this deal goes down, this car is sold.
We came into this guy's kind of mini showroom type thing that he had built out of an old unit, like lovely old wooden boards everywhere, and he had this, he had another E46 M3, he had an old BMW 2002, and he got it, he understood it. All of the little trims he made nice, he had restored it, he had painted bits and bobs of it. It looked like a Gran Turismo car.
Yeah,
it was sat there perfect. And I knew in that moment, I would unfortunately have to buy it. So I made some calls, got a loan, and drove the car home that day. And that was 2021. I think it had 102,000 miles on it. And here we are today. My E46 M3, I genuinely spent upwards of a decade looking for one. How many times did I talk before I bought it about wanting a green M3?
Oh, many times. I'd be sat across from Edwin in the office and I'd hear, car number 37's come up for sale, but it's an SMG and it's got the black and leather interior. Not for me, thank you.
So, from my research, more car nerdery coming, 429 of these cars were ever built in this colour. That is worldwide coupe convertible. Also, colour code 429 for Oxford Green 2.
Wow.
42 coupes were delivered to the UK. And then there were 71 total right-hand drive M texture interior. So that is the cloth interior.
The bus seats.
The bus seats, as we like to call them. And of those, I know of only 2 in the world that have this colour interior, that interior, and our right-hand drive. My car and one very lucky gentleman in Japan. I'd love to buy that one day. Or crash it. If you could crash it and I could have the only one, that'd be perfect, thank you. So yeah, it is in theory a very rare spec, but honestly, I don't care. I was happy to repaint one. I just wanted one in this colour because it's just perfect to me. A lot of people don't like it. You're not actually the biggest fan.
It's not what I would choose.
Exactly.
But I get it.
Because an E46 M3 in the early 2000s, they were about being kind of a bit flashy. Like the blues, the yellows, the reds, they were the colour that everyone was after. Not old man green. Why would someone spec this car in this way? They went, give me green old man on the outside and let me option out the leather. You got leather standard. You had to say, I don't want leather, give me the cloth. Why? Otherwise, it's a base model car. It does have a sunroof, but it has no rear blind, it has no Harman Kardon, it has no heated seats. It is just a base M3, but with a sunroof. So Whoever spec'd this, whichever mentalist spec'd this in the early 2000s, good on you, mate. Thank you. I really enjoy it.
Thank you very much.
This week's video is sponsored by our friends at Holy, so staying hydrated is the least of our worries.
Holy makes great tasting, low-calorie drinks that are a solid alternative to your usual sugary options.
Now, they have hooked us up with their Starter Set Deluxe Kit, which comes with samples of their 3 most popular lines: Holy Energy, Holy Iced Tea, and Holy Hydration. And we genuinely love this stuff. We keep it stocked up in our unit all the time.
And now there are Holy milkshakes. Now these are a great alternative to the high sugar ones that you would usually find in shops, and they have sent us out hazelnut, banana, and vanilla, and we genuinely really like these, and we have been smashing through them.
They're super easy to make too. Just scoop some powder into your Holy shaker, add milk, give it a shake, and you've got a tasty milkshake in seconds.
Plus, there are no artificial colours or flavours, and each serving works out at 20 calories, and each of those works out at less than 80p.
So if you want to give it a go, grab one of their starter sets, which has 14 sachets, including their 7 most popular flavours. Perfect for working out which flavour you like the most.
And once you've found your favourite, you can grab a big 50-serving tub so you can keep yourself stocked up.
Use code 2DC5 for £5 off your first order.
And then use code 2DC for 10% off every order after that. So, it looked good, and it was very standard, and it was also very, very clean, but there were some things you did have to do to get up to spec.
With E46 M3s and BMWs in general, if you're not a BMW person, this is going to sound crazy to you, but there are things that you just have to do on them. You've got your subframe, which decides to rip itself out of the chassis after time. You have the rod bearings, which are the shells of your engine, which decide to eat themselves because they just like to. And then you have the Vanos, which is the engine's variable valve timing, which likes to just die and give up after a while. Nice. These are all things that no other car tends to have to deal with. No. Meanwhile, BMW people are like, that's just a serviceable item. So when I bought the car, the only thing the guy had done is he had the rod bearings done about the week before. Another thing that only BMW owners do, he gave me the old ones and went, here, you can look at them. And I went, great. Cool. This is great, thank you.
Oh, at least it did give you some kind of idea that it had been. If you looked at it and they'd all been worn out, you go, ooh.
Yeah, they were kind of okay. Yeah. So in my ownership, I had to reinforce the subframe and also do some rust work because these cars rust. I've already done 1 round of rust work. There's more coming. I've now done the Vanos as well. So the big 3 have been done, thankfully. But there's still things that are wrong. These.
This is maybe my biggest gripe with this car.
Yeah.
Every time I'm behind this car, this really bothers me.
So the M3 never had a facelift. The E46 M3 from start to finish had the same front end. The one thing they did facelift was the rear lights. You have these, the early ones. This is a very early car. It's an 01 car, which is 2nd year of production. And then later on, it was mid-03 or something, you get these LED lights, the Ministry of Sound lights, if you're from the UK, and they look 1,000 times better. And I will do them. I promise. I will.
It's not that easy, though, right?
You have to. It's not just a case of putting in the new one. You have to swap a lighting module and do some coding. So I will do it. Just not yet. Okay, I just haven't done it yet. Coming inside, this is where the kind of car is the most leggy. It looks a little bit tatty. The previous owner, I believe, tried to retrim the C pillars, B pillars and A pillars himself, and it's starting to get a little bit flappy. Also, my motion sensor in there has broken off. That happened recently. I was just driving and it hit me in the head. Nice. Which is always nice. But other than that, interior, pretty standard. Then something you really hate up the front. There's a couple of things at the front.
Oh, there's a couple of things. Before we even got there, we've got damage to a wheel and then a faded centre cap. It is proof that the car gets used.
Yes.
It's not completely immaculate, which I like, but that...
You don't like faded centre caps? Well, here's another one. This guy, he's lived a life and he's fading. Now, I was just saying to him, I kind of like it because it's not patina, I don't want to say that, but you know, it just looks a bit rough, but you hate it.
But because the rest of the car's quite clean. He needs his nose back.
So that's wrong. These are made by Bosch, the original lens covers, but actually these ones are made in China. So these ones are Bosch.
They have gone an interesting shade of yellow.
Yes, the problem with the Chiboshes is that they start to fade. It's decided to paint match itself.
Yeah.
They're starting to go green. And then also over the front, you can't really see because it's drizzling, but there is all kinds of stone chips all over this car. When I picked it up, it had been freshly repainted, the front of it, and it was immaculate. Now not so much. I couldn't care less. Genuinely don't care. I know that hurts you as well.
That's fine. That's fine because that's use.
Yeah.
That's actually the car being used.
Shall we move on to the mods?
I think the mods.
Because those are the kind of more important bits. The first thing I did was this gear knob. Now, E46 M3s, have you had one, has a horrible gear throw. So an easy upgrade that you can do is you can take the E46 330ci Club Sport gear knob and put that in, but If you do that, it doesn't illuminate anymore. So I went through so much more trouble to order an F10 M5 manual gear knob from America and cut up the boot to make it fit on here. So now he illuminates.
Worth.
But also I haven't changed my lights that I wanted to stay on.
Fair.
It's weird how that happens with cars, where some things you go, no, this has to be changed.
I need to know where my gears are.
And then
if I miss one of those, it's going to go badly.
The biggest thing that you can see in here are these Cobra Nagaro seats. These are my favourite seat in the world. This is not sponsored, but these are so nice. But I like my friends to be able to use my cars, and because I'm such a long human, if I have aftermarket seats, I have to bolt them so far back that no one can use them. Mike, you're nearly 6 foot, you're 5'10"?
Yeah.
Don't mean to out you on the internet. Please jump into the seat. This is in my seating position. And the feet are not feeting. So I've put these seats on electric rails. They are quite slow.
How do I get in the back?
So there you go. If you'd like to sit through this gap.
Oh, the back's nice, yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, it's nice.
So yes, that's the rear legroom. As you can see, the seat centres of the cloth fabric have this bus seat pattern in Alcantara. I have got some fabric to do this, redo this in that same pattern. I have the fabric, I just need to find a local upholsterer to do it, because then these seats will match and that will look perfect. As for interior bits, that's it. Let's move on to the exterior. On the outside, I've left it pretty standard. We'll get to that a little bit later. There are plans, but the first thing that I did was I stuck it on BC Racing coilovers. Now hold on, before you click or you comment, all of you going, always BC Racing coilovers. This eons ago, before Will and I had ever been near a screen, before a sponsor had ever even spoke to us, I paid my own full money for a set of BC coilovers because I genuinely like them, and I've always thought every car on BCs I've ever driven has been pretty good. So I paid full price for my own BC coilovers, so I don't want to hear nothing about BC coilovers. It's lowered on BCs and then finished off with CSL wheels. They're not real, they are replicas, because a genuine set of CSL wheels is now £3,000 used, and they are flow cast, so they're just as prone to cracking as the replicas. These look identical. They cost me £400, not £3,000. But once I put the coilovers on, I spent upwards of 2 to 3 weeks dialing in the fitment to make it sit perfectly. There is zero rub. This car can never rub, and yet sits perfectly, fits lovely. So that's it on the exterior. Shall we get
the piece?
The reason why we're all here today.
The piece of resistance is under there.
In my opinion, an E46 M3 should never have any exhaust work done. This car is about intake noise, and that is further helped by a CSL style carbon plenum. This one, not real, not an original one, because I think nowadays they sell for £4,000 to £5,000.
That's too much money
for a CSL original one. This is a carbonius box, still a lot of money. I think this was £1,900 to £2,000. But I told myself, if one day I get an M3, I cannot not have this. Now, a CSL is identical in every way, but it has here, called a snorkel. Goes on the end of here, goes down into the bumper, and the bumper has a hole down there. If you put that on, I'm sure efficiency and Germans and what such have decided that that's better. But there's one reason why I can tell you it's not. That's louder. I will now demonstrate. That is why I spent all the money on the carbon airbox, because it makes the most ridiculous noise.
And compared to standard, it is beyond night and day. There is like it's like a different car.
Yeah. So the M3 of this generation and the E36 before it, in Europe at least, have individual throttle bodies. Instead of having one big one at the front of the engine, you've got 6 for the 6 cylinders. And what that means is you can have a carbon airbox, or you can have trumpets on each one that give you the most glorious intake noise of all time. So carbon airbox aside, which is by far the best modification on any car ever made in history ever, at least for me. We are just shy of 123,000 miles, with lots more to come. My goal for this car is to get to 206,000 miles in my ownership.
So you've done 20,000 miles in...
That's really... Yeah.
So the maths, you are going to need to increase your...
It's going to be a while.
The output is going to need to be increased.
I'm going to have to up that. But that's another thing. When I bought this car, it was the first nice thing I'd ever owned. Like, up until that point, you'd known me, I would buy £500 to £1,000 cars. Yeah. This was the first anything of value I'd ever had. So I was scared shitless. I was petrified of hurting this car. And then I realised I've been lucky enough to stumble into this car and make the deal happen and pay off the loan. I've got to use it. I have to use it properly. But this car hasn't been babied its whole life. I found this one day under my dashboard, under here. I'd never looked under there. I was driving on the motorway and I randomly heard, and I thought the car was about to blow up. I was so scared. I looked down and I saw this little thing flashing down there. And what that is a early 2000s police radar detector. And the moment I saw that, I went, the previous owner, he was on it. He's been doing some speeds in this thing. This car has already seen some stuff. So there's nothing I can do to it that's going to be that much worse.
So you've had this 4 years, 20,000 miles. Where you been?
Anywhere I can. I tend to drive lots of different cars, a little bit of mileage. I don't tend to do one car with lots of miles, but this I will try and take wherever I can. I've taken it, you know, up north. I've taken it across to France, Holland, Belgium, and I've got this weekend my first ever track day in it. The moment we finish this video, I'm driving up to Liverpool and doing a track day with my friend up there. But yeah, I would love to drive this car everywhere. I don't want to take it to Germany. That'd be cool to drive it back to the factory. Yeah. Italy would be cool. New York, China.
Anywhere.
Yeah.
Basically anywhere.
Simply anywhere I can. But also, I've got lots of things still planned to do with this car, which you'll probably see on this channel because I want to do a series of upgrades to this. Exterior-wise, I want the full CSL look. A boot lid, a rear splitter, a front bumper, and it gives the car just the final little bit of like OEM plus anger. A big brake kit. It needs it. That's kind of the one thing that lets this car down, is the brakes are not that great. Exhaust, standard, always. I'll die on that hill. If you've got a aftermarket exhaust in your M3, cool, good for you. I don't agree with it. Interior-wise is where kind of the most work needs to be done. Obviously, all of the A and B pillars and C pillars. This, since day one, has always been just very loose, which is very annoying. The steering wheel is in horrible condition, it must be said. And then this, the big screen in the middle, I love, but I really like CarPlay on it. And there's a really cool company called, is it Carphonics? Yeah, Carphonics. And they make a setup that retains your original screen, but you can click a button and switch to Apple CarPlay. That's cool.
This idea for the screen you have, will it get rid of this thing? This bothers me every single time I see this.
Do you mean that the Bluetooth device is connected successfully?
I think it is every single time.
No. So, unfortunately, there is something that makes this car even more rare to do with that. This car can send off your CD player tape in the back and have it converted to allow Bluetooth. So you can click your CD button or your aux button, and it goes, have your phone.
Bluetooth, mate.
Connect your phone up. It'd be great. It was one of the first things I did when I bought the car. I sent it off because nobody wants to have to use an FM transmitter. It's not great. Sent it off to them, and the guy sent me a message back and said, unfortunately, I have to refund your money because there was a batch of around 100 cars in 2001 that were delivered without this specific module in their amplifier, which allows you to have Bluetooth.
Just this.
And at first I was like, you just don't want to do the job. Yeah. Something's happened, you're coming up with an excuse. So I searched it up, and there is a forum thread, you can go and find this, of people who have the same issue. They were all built around, I think it's November 2001, which is the month this car was built, where the factory ran out of a certain module, shipped them without, and it means you cannot add Bluetooth to this car. So the seller in me is saying, it's actually even rarer. It's one of 100. The real me goes, this is really annoying, I just want Bluetooth. Hence why I've got that.
So why an E46 M3 in particular?
So like I said before, I was never into BMWs. I was actually into Hondas back in the day, before I was into cars. And then one day when I started working, I started doing my work experience, I was at a company called Gumball 3000. And someone that we later came to both work with, a guy called John Markar, was there, and he had a Laguna Seca Blue E46 M3 Coupe, which is my other favourite colour. That's liquid M3 colour.
E46 M3 in a nutshell.
Exactly. And I remember seeing it, and again, I'd seen this car and I knew I wanted one. And I saw that car and he took me out for a drive in it, and I was like, I have to own one of these one day. Then we went later on at Car Throttle, he took me around the Nürburgring. My first ever Nürburgring lap as a passenger was in his E46 M3. And again, I was like, I have to own one of these. And thankfully, a couple of years down the line, I have my own one. It's not the best, it's not the nicest, but I couldn't care less. So yeah, this is the car that I hope that I never, ever have to sell. It is a bit Marmite. Some people love the green, some people really do not like the green. I am just overjoyed that I have one. My plan was to have a horrible crashed Cat C1 that was repainted, and I couldn't care less, but to have a real one, it's the icing on the cake. Let us know what you think in the comments. Click here if you want to see where Will rebuilt his Clio engine. See you next week.